Hey there, this is Shona. I'm going to do a little live stream. I'm not in front of my computer today. I'm actually at one of our midterm rentals. It's like a super gorgeous day in Portland, very. So I thought I would do a little tour of one of our midterm rentals and just talk about furnishing basics, how to furnish, what to furnish. I know a lot of people have questions. I'm like, how nice it has to be. So we're going to cover that. So I'm just starting with the outside. Just let me know where you're calling in from. Or let me go back inside. Okay. Hey, Jennifer. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, Shannon. All right. I'm going to flip the camera and I just want to say hi. I feel like it's really close to my face right now, which is uncomfortable. Okay. So this is the outside of the property. It's a property we bought a couple years ago. We added a fence. That's definitely like a very in-demand amenity, being pet friendly and having a fenced yard. I always like to define the fenced yard areas. Ideally, it's not shared. People don't really want to share yard. So we did add the fence when we purchased it. So that's just a big tip there. Definitely be pet friendly. Have a fence, very much in demand. This property doesn't have parking, just has street parking. So that's not ideal, but it still works. It's actually a duplex. My Wi-Fi will be better inside. So this is the front door. It's a duplex, but it's not side by side. So there's one entrance here and then another one in the back for the basement unit. You can see we also fenced this yard too. So this is a clearer lot. So the front fence is lower than the back fence. But yeah, anyway, so I'll take you guys inside and go over things. And feel free to pop in questions as you have them. This is like the entry area, right? Pretty simple. Put a little bench there, some artwork. I would like to add a wreath on the door. I think it makes it a little bit homey and welcoming. So this is like the entry area. Yeah, pretty straightforward. And then coming into the living room, right? Pretty standard. I typically just have one smart TV. I don't put them in every room like an Airbnb. No one's usually complains about that. I feel like these days most people have their own devices, kind of saves money on the budget. So I just have one smart TV, a couch, obviously a throw rug, ideally no carpet, right? Because of pets and whatnot. I just like to have a plant, some kind of knickknacks just to make it look cozy. I also looks ugly, but I always put couch covers on couches for like pet hair. So they're stretchy and you can throw them in the washing machine. It prevents like scratching and stains and stuff. And I've learned all this kind of over time tips and tricks. And so, yeah, I definitely recommend like a furniture cover. Then obviously a cute little coffee table, like having a little shelf for some knickknacks and then obviously some chairs. And I think throws just make it look cozy, right? I always do that. Pretty straightforward. Another thing that's really in demand is definitely washer dryer, right? People really want that. Again, they're not there for vacation, right? They're definitely staying for a while. So laundry is super important in unit. Again, not shared ideally. And as you guys have questions, let me know. But I've definitely honed down like how to furnish quickly. You just break down each room. And in the course, I have a pretty full furnishing list with like links to Amazon and stuff. And then the kitchen, right? Kitchen is fully stocked. We bought this property. It was like the ugly oak cabinets. We actually sprayed them. I don't always recommend that, but modernize it a little bit. And we just threw on some like hardware, modernize it a little bit. And then we put some new Amazon light fixtures in, new faucet, right? It's got the kind of old style quartz countertops, which is not great, but again, it's totally fine. It's functional, right? So just little things, right? The appliances are white, but that kind of worked because we painted the cabinets. And as far as stocking things go, just like fully stocked, right? Silverware, all that stuff. Again, I have a big list in the course, but just make sure it's set up well for cooking, plates and all that stuff, all the basics, right? Just make sure you have enough for everyone. Make sure they're not chipped or anything that does happen over time. Appliance-wise, I typically will include a toaster, coffee maker. I like to have an electronic water kettle for tea and whatnot. Sometimes I do a French press, not always. A blender is nice. Again, we don't need super fancy kitchen appliances. I think with short-term rentals, people are on vacation, they want all the fancy stuff. No one ever complains about the basic kitchen setup. Again, you can get fancier, but I don't think it's expected. Usually as starter items too, I'll leave out like some coffee and some treats or something, a bottle of wine, some chocolate. But this is the kitchen is pretty basic, right? So I think the idea is here is make it comfortable, make it homey, but you don't need to overdo it. Hey, Jared. Yeah, so I'll just go to the bedrooms. Again, I always like to add some art on the walls. This is just, it's Amazon art, right? Nothing special, but it just would be a little plain without some art. Then there's a rug in the hallway. This is one of the bedrooms, right? Turn the light on. I typically will put queen beds in most of the rooms, and then I'll do like a king bed if I can in one of them, but just put a throw on the bed, right? Some throw pillows. It just makes it look a little cozy. Nightstands, lamps, pretty basic, right? And then just make sure you've got closets and a hanger. Also, some kind of storage space for clothing is really good because people are going to be there for a while. They want to unpack. And it's also nice to have a primary bedroom on the main level as well as a bathroom for accessibility issues. So this is what the bathroom, right? Pretty simple. It was the original bathroom. We just, at the time, we did a light cosmetic upgrade. We put a new light fixture, a new mirror, and then we just changed out the hardware. So it's like the original vanity, but just changing out the hardware and the light fixture just makes it feel a little bit more modern. I always like to include these rolling carts for just like kind of accessories and towels and whatnot. There's not a lot of shelf space in here, so I typically will do that in a bathroom. If just for that extra storage stuff, then obviously toilet. Always bathrooms, just keep an eye on your shower curtains. I tend to get funky if you have them, so make sure those are always fresh. Oh dear. Can you hear me now? Thank you for saying something. I think I hit the mute button by accident. Thank you for mentioning that. If you can hear me, let me know. I think I accidentally thumbed that sound button. Okay, now I can't see comments. Okay, I'll just keep going. Oh, there we go. Okay. Hey, Richard. Let me know if you guys can hear me. Okay, awesome. Thank you. So just saying, I don't always put desks in all the bedrooms. In this case, when I was furnishing this, the first guest like requested it. I think they were students. So I was like, sure, no problem. There's actually space in the rooms, but I would say you don't always need desks in the rooms, but if you can, can't hurt. This is like a bonus room. So there were no doors on it when we bought it. We put on these barn doors just to make it into an office. So it's like a good solution. And this is like the fourth kind of bedroom. We have a bonus room, right? And so I just put like a desk here, right? Just a dedicated office space. That's really just like a desk and an office chair and obviously good internet, right? So make sure that you definitely have a desk for sure. I think at this point that's pretty ubiquitous, but if you didn't know that for sure. And if I have like a 3-bedroom, I typically will put 2 beds in and make one room a dedicated office, and I can always add a bed, but it saves on budget and people just typically want an office space, or sometimes it's just 2 people and they don't need 3 beds. So that's how I furnish it. It just saves budget. Again, it's also, you can make it an amenity because you can say dedicated office space. That is the grand tour. So if you guys have questions, I can hang out for a few minutes. If you guys are in the midst of furnishing or have questions or need help with getting your midterm set up or booked or advertised or anything like that, I'm definitely happy to work with you guys. I do have an MTR playbook course where I work one-on-one with students to get access to all my kind of tools and SOPs and calculators and all that fun stuff. Yeah, that's just, I figured I would do a quick tour, show you what it's like. Again, it's nice, but it's not over the top. You don't spend a lot of money in furnishing, but be thoughtful about it. So yeah, if you guys have questions, I'll hang out for a few minutes. But thanks again for tuning in. Like, I just figured I was at this property. I was just doing a showing, so I thought I would do a tour because I couldn't make it back home in time. But if you're watching the replay, chime in with questions. If you're interested in getting more help with your midterm. Oh, you're so welcome, Jennifer. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, it's funny. It's fun to walk into a property and see it all furnished. So it's nice to share. But yeah, if you guys have questions or want help with stuff, just reach out, let me know. See if it's a good fit for you, the coaching program, or if just a quick question, I'm happy to answer it. But yeah, it's the other benefit of having midterms is in between stays, you could actually stay there and get some work done if you need to get out of the house a little bit. So lots of benefits. But this is definitely busy season. So if anyone is considering midterm and maybe sitting on a property that's a short term right now, you're tired of the turnover, or maybe you plan to flip it and it's just sitting there. Midterm is a great kind of exit strategy, even if it's just short term till the market picks up. So Richard's asking the label with the linen tucked into it. Is that a comfort or duvet cover? Linen tucked. I don't know the linen tucked into. It's probably a duvet cover. I like duvets. With I grew up without top sheets, but I always put top sheets on. But I always have like a duvet and a duvet cover, and then a top sheet. So yeah, yep. Hopefully they answered your question. But yeah, and I think with rugs, again, I think it's nice to have throw rugs, and if they're washable, that's even better, right? Because of pet issues. Sometimes I've had good luck, but I have had issues, right? Jennifer's asking if the guest is not using the third bed and said once in office, do you store the bed in the garage or elsewhere? That's a really good question. I typically, so if I have a 3-bedroom, right, I'll furnish it with 2 beds. I'll do a king size bed and a queen size bed. And then I will make the third bedroom into an office, and that just stays as an office. And then if I'm doing it, like typically if a family, like a displaced family, I've talked a lot about insurance claims. Whenever I do a tour with them, I always say, hey, we can definitely accommodate what you're looking for. And typically they want like an extra office space. So yeah, I have moved beds around, but not always. It just depends. But I will always let people know, hey, if you're going to stay, if you're staying for a month, no, but if you're staying for a couple months, we're like always happy to accommodate things. But so far, when I've made one room an office, and most of the time they're fine with that. People are working remote or at least part-time, so they really want an office space. Thanks, Richard. I appreciate that. The plants, yeah. Yeah, I love having real plants. This one used to be a little bit fuller, but it's made it. I just think it adds a little bit of life. They don't always make it. It's not that expensive to replace, and I think it's a nice touch. That one's real. This one is fake. Oh. But yeah, I used to have more plants, I'll be honest, but I do like having real plants. They don't, again, I have pretty detailed house notes where I ask guests to water the plants, and I'd say like 90% of the time they make it. Yeah, you're so welcome, Jennifer. Yeah, honestly, I like saving the money on the whole bedroom setup, and a desk is just cheaper, and desk and a chair, and it makes the bedroom into an amenity. Yeah, that's definitely like really midterm focus, right? If you're doing the hybrid strategy, it's beds and heads and beds or whatever they say, right? So you might have a dual purpose space, like a desk and a bed. For me, I'm pretty exclusively midterm, so I don't need that, but just then know your market and what your strategy is. Yeah, you're so welcome. Any other questions? But yeah, and I think people get intimidated by furnishing again. It's really either you have a knack for it. If you don't, ask a friend. There's so many tools online, but I don't think it takes much to make it feel cozy and nice without breaking the bank for what we think of how much furnishing is. It does add up though. It takes a minute, but once it's furnished and you get your return back pretty quickly. Yeah. Any other questions before we sign off? If you're watching the replay, feel free to chime in with questions. If you're interested in working with me, just drop a note below. We can hop on a call and just see where you're at and what you might need help with, and if I could possibly help, we could talk about that. Looks real. Yeah. This plant, this monstera is real. That one's real. This one is fake, and it gets dusty and it's yeah, it just fills in that space. But yeah, so I think I covered everything. Definitely the most in-demand amenities I see are a lot of demand for off-street parking, fence yard, pet friendly. That's larger properties. I'd definitely say if you're kind of on the fence, but all properties work as midterms. But for families and displaced families are typically looking for like a 4-bedroom, sometimes a 3-bedroom. Occasionally I'll rent them smaller, but for families are typically looking for larger properties. But yeah, all right. I'll just hang out for another minute if there's any other questions, or if you're watching the replay, just chime in. But yeah, I don't see any other questions. Anything is fair game, anything about laces. But typically what I often will book sight unseen. Sometimes I'll do a tour, but if I do a tour, I always ask that people like check out the video and the virtual tour. If they are local, a lot of times they're booking from out of state, right? With insurance, they're always typically going to want to see it in person. Again, not always. It just depends. Make sure you have all your assets ready and your good photos and stuff. So, yeah. All right, everyone. I don't see any other questions. Have a great evening. Thank you for tuning in. Again, if you're watching the replay and interested in possible coaching help, just reach out. We'll see if it's a good fit. And yeah, I will see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in.